This is an interview with Pat Weickenand for the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor Oral History Project titled Women at Work. The interview is being conducted at Liberty Arms today, May 23rd of 2023, and my name's Nicole Marino. Pat, where did you and your family live when you were growing up?
On the south side of Youngstown.
And what did your parents do for a living?
Well, my mother didn't work. My father worked on the railroad.
Oh. Where did you go to high school?
Ursuline High School.
Very good. And when did you graduate?
1948.
Mm-hmm. What'd you do right after high school?
I entered nurses training.
Oh, uh-huh. Where did you do that?
St. Elizabeth's.
Very good. And what was your very first job?
Just working on what you call general medical floor.
Okay. Was that while you were in high school or after?
Oh, you're talking in high school? I worked at McKelvey's.
Yeah.
I worked in the department store in high school.
Okay. So what did you do at McKelvey's?
We were called wrappers. We wrapped because each department had a area where you wrapped all the packages for everybody.
For all the customers. Sure.
Sent the thing up the tubes.
Oh, through the vacuum tube?
Yeah.
Great. How long did you do that?
I did it for two or 3 years, part-time.
Sure. Was it mostly seasonal then, because you were in school or?
Maybe on a Saturday.
Oh, I see.
And then, seasonal and summer and so on.
Okay. So that was kind of
that
was a part-time thing for you while you were in school.
Yes.
Then you went to nurses training.
Yes.
And I guess, what was your first job out of school then?
You mean out of nursing school? Mm-hmm. I worked at St. Elizabeth's in a regular medical surgical unit.
Did you work while you were going to school too?
No.
Okay. So you finished your training and you came out. What was your nursing title when you came out of school?
Just registered. Well, you had to take your license, get your license as a registered nurse.
As a registered nurse. All right. So, how did you get your first nursing job?
Well, I guess it was most of us were hired right there, as we graduated.
Because you were training in-house there, and then they were able to see how good you were. I see. Had you always wanted to be a nurse when you were growing up?
Yes.
When you worked at McKelvey's, how did you get your job at McKelvey's? What made you decide to work there?
Well, my best friend's mother worked there, and so she got a part-time job. So then I got a part-time job.
Sure. How long did it take for you to do your nursing, your studies, like when you were in school to become a registered nurse to take your test?
Well, it was a 3-year program.
3 years? And then once you were hired on, did they offer you additional training to, like ongoing training?
Well, I worked there for a couple years, and I got married and moved to Cleveland.
Oh.
And then I worked in Cleveland.
Okay.
And later on, my college was much later. It was part-time going to college forever.
Oh.
At YSU.
Okay.
To get my BSN, get my degree. Yeah.
Okay. So
there was the diploma degree.
Okay.
And then I got my BSN.
What? You'll have to forgive me. I don't know what BSN.
Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
All right. And so you did that part-time while you were working?
Yes.
Okay. And you were in Cleveland working at that time, or you were back
No,
here?
back in
All
Youngstown.
right. I'm sorry. I was...
Yeah.
Okay. How long were you up in Cleveland working?
About a year and a half or two.
You said you were married. Were you married at the time you lived in Cleveland?
That's when I moved to Cleveland when I got married.
I see. And then you were up there, and then you two decided to come back this way?
Yes.
Was he from here too?
Yes.
Very good. You came back down here and went back to school. And you did that part-time. What made you decide to go back to school to get your bachelor's degree?
Well, I was in a position of head nurse and, excuse me, and supervisor, and it was a requirement.
Oh, I see. Otherwise, you would
That's
have...
one way you go to school.
Sure. Otherwise, you'd have to take a demotion, right? And
Well, it never was said that way, but it, was part of the job requirements for that
your
positions.
expectations. Sure. Did they help you pay for school too, or
No.
just you working was
Yeah.
okay? And then when you went back to school to get your bachelor's, and then that allowed you to. Did that allow you to make a promote? Like, was it a promotion for yourself, or?
Yeah, I went into the nursing supervision. Then.
Okay, I see. How long did you do that?
Well, I did that until then. When my husband was sick, I had to quit.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time after that he died and everything, and I went back, there was, I had to go on the afternoon turn. That was what was available. And they said, well, you only probably do it for a couple weeks. But 9 years later, but I made very good friends and it worked out fine.
All right.
And I found out that was probably a good thing for me.
Oh. And do you have children?
No,
No.
I had 4 pregnancies.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But none.
I see. So when, and I'm sorry to dig this way, but when did your husband get sick then?
He had a brain tumor. He was 56.
Oh goodness, that's young.
Uh-huh.
What do you remember around what year that was?
1985.
Oh, okay. So you stopped to take care of him. Did you stay? You took time off of work to take care of him,
Yes.
right? 'Cause he needed your full attention.
Yes.
And then
I had some help with my sister, but she lived in California, and then she was offered a job, so she had to go back, and so then I had to take the time.
Sure. What was your working relationship like with your coworkers?
I thought it was always pretty good.
Yeah. Did you work with?
For my coworkers, it was always good.
Mm-hmm. Was it primarily working with women or men, or a mix of both?
In the beginning, it was mostly women, but as time, more men went into the nursing, so I worked with some men.
Sure. And how was that from the outside, right? Because nursing was a
woman's
yeah, right?
thing.
It
Yeah.
was existing work that women did. And when the men came in, how was it to watch them in this new spot that they hadn't been used to, maybe?
Well, I think that the first ones I dealt with came from, like, the war, the Vietnam War and that, so they were, into this in that area.
And they had been medics then in the war and were looking to continue to take care of people. Wow. Huh.
See, when we went in, we lived in the nursing home and all that, the nurses' home.
Oh.
We had to live there
Yeah.
in my day. You know, it was like going to school.
Sure.
But you lived in a dorm.
And then even though you're working and you're not in school anymore, you're still living in the nurse's house? No, just when you're in school.
No, when I was
see.
in school.
Okay.
But we didn't have the men at that time.
Right.
And then as time, like I said, it came about that men went into nursing.
And how was it to get along with them? Were they okay?
The ones I dealt with were all okay. Had one character, but he was just a character.
That was just his personality.
But most of the ones I worked with were were good, really liked.
And just out of curiosity, because they came back from Vietnam and had probably seen some pretty rough things. How were they as people? Were they, I don't know how to ask what I mean. Like emotionally, did they struggle?
Well, the ones I dealt with, I didn't seem to see that. But like I said, there weren't that many.
Sure. That really has nothing to do with your story. I'm just curious about them. Yeah.
And the one that was a character, he was just a character.
He was he?
He was a sort of a womanizer type.
Oh,
But we got along okay. But he was with, I was a little older. The younger girls had to watch out.
So you were able to recognize
that he was a womanizer.
Sure. And you did you give the other girls some tips on how to deal with him?
Well, yeah, sort of. But at least he taught me some things like how to use a computer. Like it was just coming in, that kind of thing was just coming in. So, I learned from him too.
Oh, very good. Very good. Did you ever have any struggles with anybody that you worked with, women or men, whomever, like just somebody that was challenging to deal with?
We had a lot of challenging people. I did pretty good, though.
What was your personal technique to get along with somebody that was...
Most of the time, I just, kept my cool. Maybe a few times in my life, I lost it.
Oh,
Which wasn't too good. If you lose your cool, is it?
Right.
One was a very prominent physician. And I lost my cool with him.
Did he have, tell me about him a little bit.
He was a heart surgeon.
Oh.
So they're kind of, It was something, at the moment, I think it had something to do with the way he was treating the nurses or something.
Did they, and I don't have experience with doctors or I don't have that experience.
They have an ego.
Do they? Yeah, that was kind of what I was going to ask you.
Most of them seem to.
They feel like they're, And this particular guy expressed that as in everyone else was not very good. I see. How about administration? Like, other than the doctors, how was administration in dealing with workers or with you or?
With me, pretty good. I was kind of considered administration in my job.
You were stepping up. Sure.
Not high administration, but middle, whatever you call it.
But you were supervising and you were managing people. Did you have a union where you were working?
No.
No. Okay.
I guess they always felt we benefited from what the union did. The union was at Northside Hospital.
Okay.
And that, what they felt that we sort of benefited. They got a raise, we got a raise, that kind of thing,
because you're all
hours and stuff like that, yeah.
So because they had a union and they would negotiate their contract, but you all live in the same community, that would
so we
spread
benefited.
Sure. And that makes sense. Sure.
And my best friend was president of the union.
Oh, so did you have some inside scoop there?
A couple times. But I tried to stay. One time, I don't know what happened, but they quoted me one time, which I didn't like.
Oh.
Something I might have said or something that they... But that was a long time ago.
Sure.
Excuse me.
Out of curiosity, did they ever go on strike when their union went on strike? How'd that affect you by being in a separate place?
And well, we had to take all the extra patients and stuff.
Sure. Would they move patients from Northside to your facility when they?
Well, I think they kind of worked it that so you don't admit for so long until get the census down lower and stuff.
I see. To
Yeah.
reduce the workload on the. I see. Did it make any real influence on your daily work at those times?
Oh, somewhat.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier that when you first started out, you were on day turn, but then later when you went back to work, you were on afternoons.
I was on, when I first graduated, I was on rotation.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
And then when I lived in Cleveland, I was on day turn. And when I came back to here, then it was mostly afternoon. It was afternoon turn after my husband died. Mm-hmm. But they said, well, it'll only be a week.
And it turned out to be 9 years.
Yeah.
Which shift did you like the best, having gotten to do each one?
I got used to afternoons. Mm-hmm. I never liked night turn, never. Mm-hmm. The few times after that we used to have to rotate, long before. Mm-hmm. But the few times I worked night turn, no, I never liked it. I just wasn't. I had friends that just loved it, but I didn't.
No. Yeah. So while you were working, I guess maybe mainly in Cleveland then, while you were working and newly married, how was that? How did that affect your relationship with your husband?
Well, it went fine because, like I said, it was all day turn.
Mm-hmm. Were you already a nurse when you met him?
No, I actually met him in high school, and then he and the family moved away to Detroit, but the parents were separated. The father lived here, and the mother moved to Detroit. Mm-hmm. And then he went to service for a couple years, and then we communicated,
Sure.
with letters and stuff like that.
So he already...
So when he came back here to Youngstown, then he went to Cleveland and went to John Carroll to school.
And he already knew you were planning to become a nurse, so this was no surprise to him?
Oh, no.
Okay. What did you enjoy the most about your job?
About my job? Mm-hmm. Well, I always like to take the patients. I always liked that.
Mm-hmm. And what did you enjoy the least about your job?
Sometimes the hours.
The hours? Yeah, sure. What was the atmosphere like for women on your workforce?
Well, in those days, it was mostly all women to start with.
So, wasn't were the men that you did come in contact with supportive and encouraging, or?
Are you talking about the doctors or the?
Yeah, this could be administration. This could be the doctors. This could be the male nurses when they came along, or you might have to pick a couple different time frames in there.
Well, the doctors were always a little difficult.
Yeah. Okay. That's funny. Did you ever feel like a minority anywhere you worked? You said it was mostly women, so that doesn't really apply to you. You worked at a couple different places. Were the facilities they supplied for you, like your locker rooms or restrooms or areas, were they always sufficient for what your needs were?
Yeah, depending on the years and stuff, yeah.
Later on, when the guys came in to join your nursing teams, did they provide them with separate facilities then in the same way? Or, meaning locker rooms and showers?
Oh,
and stuff?
yeah.
Did they already have some?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they always had the orderlies.
Ah, that's true. I
Yeah.
forgot about that. Sure. Did you ever find yourself in the position where you're working full time and you're taking care of other family members who need your assistance, or maybe a parent who's older and gets sick or anything like that?
Oh, yeah,
Tell me about that.
both sides of the family.
Oh, yeah? How did that work out? Or, I mean, how did you deal with it?
Just didn't. You know, my mother had some problems, so I had to deal with that. And then finally she had to go to a facility.
Did she come stay with you first, or you helped her at her house?
I tried to, well, when my father died, then things really went downhill fast with her.
I see.
So actually, we had to really get her settled rather quickly.
Sure.
And I got her to a place, it was actually part of Windsor, down on Belmont, and I could visit her almost every day, either going to work, coming home from work, whatever shift. So I always went to see her.
Well, that's nice then that it was convenient. You were able to continue that without having it make too much extra hardship on you. So you retired, right? I guess I should say, when did you retire?
In 1994, 95.
Okay.
In 94, but then I worked what you called on-call, or, you know, not part-time, but sort of an on-call basis for a year or so.
Okay. And did you have a pension plan through the
Yes.
hospital? During the time you worked at the hospital, did they ever have any buyouts or anything like that, where they
They did the one time. That's when pretty many of us, there was a large group of people that actually took it and retired. And that's when I actually retired, but then did that part-time
Then you did
thing.
the on-call.
On-call.
So that made much more financial sense to you then.
Yeah,
right?
because I was not quite ready to completely quit.
Sure, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you were able to receive benefits and a pension, and
Yes.
very good. But they didn't close your company because it's still,
No, it's not.
yeah.
It's not closed.
Sure. Do you ever remember any accidents that took place when you were on the work site? Something, and this could be McKelvey's or any of the anywhere that you worked.
Accidents in what way?
Just anything that comes to mind. If somebody got hurt, if the building got anything that you.
There
would call
was
an
one
accident.
big accident in front of the McKelveys one time. The car sort of almost mowed down a lot of people one time.
Really?
Yeah.
What else do you remember about that? What happened there?
I just remember a lot of them were hurt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because that was downtown, right?
Yeah.
On Federal Street. Was it was it real? I mean, it was busy downtown, obviously, at the time. But did a lot of people drive downtown
They
then?
did have the main street was open at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, now I think it's closed. I'm not sure how it is down there.
You can get through.
Kind of odd.
Traffic isn't robust down there anymore because it's more of a destination now than it is a place to drive through.
Oh, it was quite, in my younger years, it was quite the busy place.
Yeah. Did they have were the trolleys still running when you were working at McKelvey's?
I think in the beginning they were.
What did you like about working at McKelvey's? If you remember. I know you only worked there a little bit when you were young, but...
I like the people. Mm-hmm. I like the ability to be able to get some things, have some money, and I could get the clothes I needed. That was mostly, I took care of getting whatever, because you could get discount.
Yeah.
So I got clothes or whatever for school, but because we didn't wear uniforms at that time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and McKelvey's was a nice store, too, and
Yes.
they had nice things. Very good.
And I did a variety, many things I did there. Many little odd jobs.
And they, did McKelvey's do real fancy Christmas displays, too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In the windows and stuff, yes.
How did they put that together? Did they invite
They had
somebody in?
No, they had a lady that would, excuse me, she was in charge of the window displays, and then she would have her whatever she needed, but yeah.
Oh, nice. Was that a big deal for everybody when the...
Oh, yes.
Great. Can you think of any episodes anywhere you worked of violence, where people got violent with each other?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Tell me about one of those.
Mostly in the hospital.
Yeah?
The people get some of them get violent when you tell them somebody's died or something happened. Mm-hmm. And they could get violent, punch the wall and everything.
Sure. Was it typically... Were you one of the people that had to give that kind of news, or?
I was involved in it.
Oh, that's rough. How?
One time, excuse me. One time, the lady, we told her about her. It was in the ER, and she had spike heels on, and she fell back into the chair, and her feet went up. The shoes fell off, they hit the ceiling and hit me in the head.
Oh my goodness. That's terrible.
So you never know.
Did she faint, or she was just overwhelmed, or?
Overwhelmed.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your working life?
Well, it was never dull. Never boring. And I guess you have to like people.
Yeah. I guess you have to.
What? Yeah, and to have somebody take care of people. Mm-hmm. If they don't like people, that wouldn't work very well.
Well, as a nurse, did you see the best and the worst of people?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like that's such a stressful time in people's lives that you would see.
Oh, yes.
How, well, I guess you could, it's probably just part of your personality. I was going to ask you, how did you help people through these hard times? But it's just part of you being you, I think, right? Does that seem?
Yeah, I guess, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all my stuff. I mean, I'm happy you talked with. I enjoyed talking with you. So thank you so much for doing this with me. I can't think of anything else. Can you think of anything else about? Is there any? You were in nursing for quite a while. Is there anything that you saw? What really changed in nursing from the time you started to the time you retired?
Oh, it changed greatly.
Yeah.
From the time when, it was mostly patient care, bathing, getting up, doing little whatever treatments and things like that, to all this intensive care and all the machines, it was altogether different.
Mm-hmm. And your understanding of medicine had to keep
Oh,
pace
the
with that,
medications,
right?
yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating.
And it used to be that they would call you'd be the medicine nurse, so you did the meds for everybody.
Oh, uh-huh.
But then they got to the point that you did them just for your little group of patients.
Did that? Were you able to develop better relationships with people when you just had a smaller group, or did it even matter?
Well, I wasn't in that part of it so much when they got into the individual, medication so much.
Okay. Well, and you were moving into that supervisory role too, so
Yeah.
that wasn't your thing anymore. I see. Very good. Well, thanks, Pat. That was really good. I mean, I don't have anything else. I'm sure I'll think of something later, but thank you so much for talking with me.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.